Good morning. Yes, my name is Will Lathrop, and I work at International Justice Mission, or IJM, as we're commonly called. I'm the field office director in our Ghana office here in West Africa, and it's a pleasure to be here this morning. IJM is a global organization that's built a strong reputation on our ability to reduce the prevalence of slavery, modern-day slavery, forced labor, and child trafficking across the globe by working with host governments to strengthen their criminal justice systems. In short, we work with host governments, and particularly, as I'll talk about in a minute, in Ghana, we work with the police, prosecutors, and courts to actually impose the law around trafficking or around exploitative labor. We work at the grassroots level, and we're working to strengthen criminal justice systems. Our belief is that the vulnerable groups that are typically caught up in exploitative labor are most commonly lacking protection of the law. Now, in our time together over the next 2 days, I would be happy to dig deeper into what we specifically do, but let me just move on. I want to ask for the grace to make a bold, but what I believe to be a true statement this morning. There are many collaborations, actions, and programs, and much research that needs to be accomplished to reach the lofty goals of SDG 8.7. But I would argue that the most common, or not the most common, the most crucial to success is equipping host governments to adequately and efficiently enforce the criminal law around illegal labor. When and if governments will enforce laws and provide criminal deterrence for dirty supply chains, that is where you're going to see the most action and the quickest response to the industry. There has to be an industry response to that. What I want to say is that I guess maybe this is oversimplification, but there's really two things going on. There's two hands. One hand is you have corporate monitoring, sensitization, education, civil remedy, poverty alleviation, all the things that are traditionally thought of when it comes to supply chains and it comes to modern-day slavery, forced labor, child labor. But this is a strong fight, and there needs to be two hands. And the other hand that can't be denied is the importance and the necessity of criminal deterrence for actions that are essentially illegal in virtually everywhere in the world. In Ghana, so I lead a team in Ghana, and in Ghana, the IJM team, we work with the Ghanaian government to rescue children who have been caught up in child trafficking on Volta Lake. We work with the police to arrest and hold perpetrators of human trafficking, of child trafficking, and we work with the court systems, particularly with prosecutors, to prosecute those people in court. Most recently, just in the last 2 weeks, we work with police to rescue 23 children, some as young as 5, 6, or 7 years old, and arrest 9 suspects. That's something that we're commonly involved in. And what we do is, as we're working at the grassroots level with law enforcement, we're able to see what's going well and what's not going all that well. We use that data to feed back into our training and capacity building at the national level. So in Ghana, that's what we've been doing, and we've actually seen great success in a short period of time on Volta Lake. And we're excited to see where the criminal deterrence over the next few years is going to reduce the prevalence of child trafficking in the fishing industry there. But of course, I'll just stop to say that IJM is a global organization, and so we know there are many actors and there are many angles and many important NGOs, civil societies, development actors, corporate entities that are sort of in this fight with us. And we know this hand well. That's what we do. But we're working at trying to integrate and collaborate our efforts with this hand as well. So in Ghana, we started something called CNACT. It's Coalition of NGOs Against Child Trafficking. CNACT was started about a year, informally about a year and a half ago, but formally almost exactly a year ago. It's got 24 member institutions that are sort of engaging in child trafficking or child labor in cocoa farming, mining, fishing industry, and sex exploitation, and it's sort of a watering hole, so to speak, where organizations that are coming at these problems from different angles come together to coordinate, collaborate, and shared learning around essentially all doing the same thing, and that is supporting the Ghanaian government to address the issue of child trafficking and child labor in Ghana, and that's what we've been doing, and it's been a force magnifier. Because you're fighting with both hands, you're working with both hands. I don't know where everybody stands on this issue. I'm new to this conversation, so so please forgive me for that. But many times when I talk about criminal deterrence, two things come to mind. One is people think, is it actually against the law in the first place, everywhere? And the second thing people think is, this sounds like a police state, this sounds like aggressive government action that has other negative consequences or side effects. Let me just say that virtually everywhere, most elements of forced labor, modern-day slavery, and child labor and child trafficking are illegal. They're just not, the law's just not enforced. You have good law on the books, but the law actually never comes to life because there's no government enforcement. And now if we were to take a poll about why that is, I'm sure everybody would name the common themes of lack of capacity, lack of resource, corruption, lack of political will. There's a lot of lacks that go into that. But one thing that is clear is that when governments twist that and change that and are able to change that and bring the law to life, it's a substantial deterrent to dirty supply chains. When the law is enforced, there's a supplier or an offender is forced to make a choice. I can do this thing that's illegal and go to jail, and I'm risking to my profit. Basically, it's a profit line risk. I can make a little more money, but is it worth going to jail? Whereas if there's no legal consequence, it's just advancing greed or trying to make a little more money on your profit line. So the second thing I'll say is that if you look at, I challenge you to do this if you haven't already, if you look at a map, a regional map of countries or regions that struggle most, particularly like West Africa, where we are right now, who struggle most with exploitative labor, you will see a common thread of law enforcement. Most of the areas in the world that struggle with this also struggle to effectuate law enforcement, especially when it comes to the most vulnerable members of their communities. And so I will move on to what is my final point, or kind of my final point. Let me just give you a scenario. So if you have two countries, you have country A and country B. Country B does not enforce exploitative labor laws and does not bring a criminal element to violations of supply chain. And country B does. So just imagine that. In country A, all of the burden is placed on corporate entities, development agencies, and civil societies to clean up a supply chain, to make sure that the suppliers are not using these exploitative forms of labor. If a new corporation comes into country A, they have to duplicate that effort themselves. They have to sort of fit into that effort themselves, even if it's against their competitive advantage. And not everybody is going to be motivated by the public shaming that comes along with dirty suppliers or dirty supply chains. And in country A, if a corporation leaves or development agency leaves, all of that effort actually leaves with them because it's their effort. In country B, if corporations in the development community are working symbiotically with the host government to strengthen the criminal justice system, it actually operates independently of them. If a new corporation comes in, they plug into a functioning criminal justice system, and if an old corporation leaves, it's functioning regardless of whether they're there or not. So it's just something to think about, that criminal deterrence is actually a very sustainable way in the SDG 8.7 to approach reduction in exploitative labor.